What's up everybody, I'm Chris, and today on the 8-Bit Guitarist, I'm going to do a 5-minute review of Forte 10 Basic. So let's jump in. For the record, I'm not sponsored by Lugert Verlag. I did, however, receive a free license from them, but that license deal was free to everyone on Instagram. Now, when I test out this kind of software, I don't look at any tutorials or help menus. I just like to jump in and see how far I can get and see how intuitive this software is. The startup wizard is fairly straightforward and works exactly like you'd expect. Title and composer information, and input, all that fun stuff. It does have more field options than I'm used to seeing, which is, could be helpful to you. There's a pretty good selection of instruments. It lists them in alphabetical order, which is fine. Usually I'm used to seeing them categorized, but no big deal there either. I did look online. It doesn't look like there's an option for guitar tab in the basic version. You do have to get the medium tier for that, which I believe is Forte 10 Home. Now, the basic version does only allow 4 instruments. It says 4 staves, but I can add 4 pianos, which in my mind is technically 8 because, treble and bass for each piano. But I could be wrong in what I think of as a stave, I guess. I don't know if that's different in Europe. For the score setup portion, there's some cool features. It does show you can make custom time signatures, but apparently that's not allowed in the basic version. The key selector is kind of cool. It automatically displays in letter format the relative major or minor of the selected key, or you can input the number of sharps and flats for the key name to be calculated. Which could be helpful to new students. For the rest of us, not so much. I also like that you can manually declare your tempo text to whatever you want. Right now we're just going to call it moderately fast, whatever. Now I've got the display partially customized already. I've been playing around with this for a bit. I absolutely love any program that offers a dark mode since my eyes are pretty light sensitive, but the only downside to this is I can't find an easy way to flip the pages to a dark mode scheme as well, which sort of makes the dark mode useless. Speaking of the pages, I don't see a way to set the staves up in a continuous mode, where you would just continue scrolling to input your notes, where they'd flow directly from left to right, which that's not uncommon in a lot of the basic versions of notation software. That's something you usually have to pay for a premium version. I don't know if their premium version allows that or not. The most important part of most software, in my mind, and it gets doubly true for notation software, is the user interface. Creative software, I think, should be intuitive to use. I shouldn't have to consult the help file or Google every time I want to do something simple. For the most part, I expect to be able to input notes, copy, paste, do basic editing, that sort of thing with just poking around, not much research. And Forte gets me about 75% of the way there. Basic note input is fairly simple. You do have to select the correct tool, which is common with other notation editors, see the insert button at the top. That's what I'm referring to. I mentioned this because I'm used to Finale, and so I'm kind of doing a comparison of the two. And in Finale, it's just you pick the note and go. Sibelius, I think, works where you have to select the tool, so that's not too big of a thing. It's really just an option. I'm not going to knock them for it this time around. I do like the input palette. It keeps all the most important tools in one place, and I like that it can be easily moved around where I need it. Some software locks it into one spot. When it comes to hand inputting notes, I'm able to do this quickly and easily, but my complaint is the note has to be in the exact spot of the measure you intend it to go, or offsetting it would create odd rhythms. So if you don't put it exactly where you expect the front beat of the quarter note to go, it offsets it to adds an 8th note rest and then adds an 8th note, and so if you're not exactly precise, it's kind of a pain. I think Sibelius has worked this way for a long time. I haven't used the last version or so that's not a terrible system either. It's just something to be noted. I do have 2 big issues that I can't get past though. The copy and paste feature. It requires going to its own menu, and to top it off, the menu requires oddly specific parameters that are automatically detected in other notation software, pieces of notation software. Running a Control-C and Control-V seems to be out of the question. You can do that in simple mode, but it's still not exactly like you'd expect it to work, and that absolutely kills my workflow. What makes it worse is this isn't the only thing that requires an over-the-top menu. Moving chord symbols requires the same amount of hassle, and I don't understand why I can't just drag and drop them. Like I mentioned before, the system does offer an easy mode, which makes a few of the pointer tools a bit more intuitive, but really just hides most of the program features. I also noticed that there's no eraser tool. I find myself using Control-Z to back up if I make a mistake, but that doesn't help me if I need to go back and erase something that I've made a while back. I've even tried highlighting and just hitting the delete key, and that doesn't seem to do anything either. So I did a separate test with MIDI to try to input via my M-Audio Oxygen 25. What I found was it's really clunky with how it works. There just seems to be a delay, and I don't know how to adjust it. If I try to do 8th or 16th note runs, and I do it too fast, it just stacks the notes, even though I'm clearly separating them. And when I try to insert rests, it doesn't seem to progress where the playhead or where the record head inputs the MIDI either. So I'm not a big fan of this. Up to this point, I haven't found a whole lot about Forte that I really like, but I can say I 100% love how easy it is to input tempo markings, accents, dynamics, all that sort of stuff. It's just a matter of selecting the right tool and clicking on the note. And it's about the easiest I've seen in most any other piece of notation software. It's simple, it's intuitive, and I just kind of wish that a lot of the other input would be this simple. Another thing I do really like about Forte is the mixer down at the bottom. It handles it like a DAW would, which I really like. It just makes it so that way when I'm playing back audio, I can adjust it on the fly. Some other neat features which I haven't seen in a lot of notation software, especially the bottom price tier, included the pencil tool, which lets you draw in whatever you want, and a rectangle draw, which lets you highlight selected areas. This is good if you're especially writing non-standard music. If you get real experimental, it's nice to add notes, and sometimes using the text input just doesn't do it on a lot of other software. So the basic version of Forte runs for $25, but it looks like you can find offers to get it for free like I did. The website says it's marketed toward musicians new to composition and notation software. The big highlights I've already talked about are the 4 staves of input, the 2 voices of input, save files as WAV format, and a file import. If that doesn't do it for you, you can get premium for $100, which states that it's marketed toward band directors, choir directors, music hobbyists, professional musicians, and more advanced music students. From my experience, that's not enough. Especially if you're marketing for band directors, it's pretty easy to go over 16 staves. It does allow export to MP3, and the big thing for folks on this channel, it has guitar and bass tablature. But $100 for a guitar and bass tab input is a little much. The premium version, which is the top tier, retailing at $200, continues to expand this feature set, but again, offer limited staves, only 32 max. It does allow MIDI export and has a VST player though, which is kind of nice. I might not be a full-time Mac user, but even I know most of the people who do this kind of thing generally have a Mac. There is no Mac version available for Forte, which is a little strange. This is Windows only. Overall, I did like Forte, or at least I wanted to like it, but I think there are better alternatives for the money. The bottom tier Forte Basic is geared towards students, but if you're just using it for educational purposes, why not use MuseScore or Finale Notepad? What level of student is this really geared toward? Young learners like middle school or high school aren't gonna care about things like MIDI export or how good the engraving is. Why wouldn't the students just opt for Finale Notepad when it's free? Not to mention they get 8 staves rather than 4, and the note input is much more fluid. Also, they can copy and paste without using a weird menu tree. Even MuseScore I think would be a better option. Even though it has a full feature set, I still think it's way easier to use than this. There seem to be limiting factors in the UI that I just can't get past. For $25, I don't think the software is worth it. Like I said before, check out Finale Notepad or MuseScore, or even the student subscription of Sibelius for $10 a month, I think it is. I would say if you do find it for free, definitely give it a go. Maybe you'll like it better than I did. Maybe the UI will be more intuitive for you. Maybe you'll just like it better than I do. That's all I have for now. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that crap. Find me on Instagram at the8bitguitarist. You'll also find download links for all the software that I've talked about here in links below, along with show notes. And we'll see you next week. Remember, stay connected, stay creative.